Hey everyone. Now, what you're going to see here is just some basic tips to keep an eye out for or to think about when you're doing these movements. So, just a few things. It would be like when you're training back, it's good to keep your shoulders down and back. So, like if you're doing like a row or a pull down, when I say keep them down, like say you're stretching, you can still stretch with your shoulder blades staying down and engaged without them coming up like this. So you're going to notice in the video there's little demonstrations of like the difference between the two. Now, I'm not saying it's not good to like I'm not saying you should never, let your shoulders come up or maybe if you're doing a row, I'm not saying don't ever let your shoulders come forward because sometimes you might want to get a little bit of a stretch, so you let it happen. But for the most part, I like to keep them down and back. It just helps me keep everything engaged and tight and feeling good. And also, sometimes if you're doing rows and you let your shoulder, say you're back like this and you're stretched, right? Sometimes if you let your shoulders come too forward with the weight, you can develop problems in your AC joint. So, something to keep in mind. Um, I just know of this from going to the chiropractor, and you know, I actually have a slightly detached AC joint where the collarbone meets in there, and the chiropractor was explaining to me he thinks it's really from like doing a row and at some point the shoulders coming forward, and that would make sense because when I'm doing these movements, when my shoulders do come forward in different positions, I could notice something in there that bothers me. So if I keep everything back and tight, same when I bench press, we're all good. So yeah, it's pretty simple. The video isn't crazy in depth. Now you will see I threw in a clip from a while back because I forgot to throw this in there when I was doing these videos like a few weeks ago. So at the very end of all this, you're going to see like a 50-second clip, and I'm not going to do a voiceover on that because you're going to see me demonstrate the difference on a high row hammer strength, the difference of basically pulling with your elbows tucked in versus your elbows coming out, and or your elbows being higher up and coming out. And also when you're doing that, you're trying to separate the handles in half, like the whole time you're keeping tension as if you could rip them apart, even though it's a you don't have that mobility of it moving in that direction, but you go against it, and it can help you engage your traps, and it can help build through your rhomboids. When your elbows are more in, you can get a little bit more of the lat right below the rhomboid. But me switching it up to, being not too high up on the machine so that I can get that angle how I want it, that's helped me build thickness through my upper back 100%. So, yeah, you're going to see that video. And the rest of the videos, you're going to hear what I have to say. It's minor little things just to keep an eye on through the movements so you don't let it get away from you. And one other big tip is when you're training back, you want to try to pull through your elbows. Now, that's why it's good to have like lifting straps so you can wrap them around the equipment, and when you're or the handles, and when you're pulling, it can help you take out your forearm and bicep or brachialis. It can help you take those things out so that when you're pulling, you can focus pulling with your elbows and not so much squeezing and pulling through with your biceps. You don't want to pull through here, you want to pull through your back because you're training back. Now, regardless of what you do, you're still going to get some activation through your arms, but we're specifically targeting back. So if you can think of, in a way, as if you didn't have hands and you only had from here back, right? Think of it as if you had an attachment here. It's like doing a pullover. When you have those pads here and you're using the pads, you're not using your hands. You're not supposed to use your hands. Some have a handle, don't use your hands. You can hold on, but you're pulling through with your elbow against the pad. Same thing. If you had someone behind you, you're doing a row, and you want to think about someone's against your arm and you're trying to push them back with your elbows. Same thing when you're pulling down, try to pull with the elbows. Think of taking your hands out of the equation and just think of flexing and pulling as if something was here and you're pushing through it. If you can do that, that's going to help you make a lot more progress, because if you can't connect with your back muscles, you're basically going to be trying to pull with your arms, doing the movement with your arms, and that's not what you want to do. So, these videos, like I said, they're not super in-depth. It just talks about keeping, shoulders down, back, different movements to help with, basic movements to help with building width through your back, whether it's in the upper region, the lower region, building thickness in the upper sections of your back, the lower sections of your back, and just little things that helped me that I think would help you. So hopefully you enjoy it. All right, I'm gonna check on these potatoes. So have a good one. Now, don't be too concerned in the order of these videos. But anyways, demonstrating the difference of your shoulders being down versus up. So we're keeping them down, keeping those elbows tucked in, and we're keeping that grip close to the chest. And you'll notice I'll start to stretch, but I don't let them come up. I still keep them down, the shoulders that is. So it helps me keep the lats engaged. This is going to help you build, I think, thickness, and it can help build a little bit of width. But overall, a little bit of both. Now, if you see here, I'm not leaning super far back. I'm more upright. I like to rock into the stretch like that, and I come back. If you were to lean really far back, it could turn into more of a high row, to be honest, which can be helpful if you don't have a high row machine. So here, doing some low row, specifically trying to build thickness in the lower section of the lat, and keeping my chest to the pad. But if you notice, I kind of round out a little bit when I get that stretch, and then I kind of rock up a little bit when I contract through the back. And over here, you can see a little bit better. Chest is staying to the pad. I'm never coming off the pad, and I keep my butt back, and that helps me get into the groove. For me, I keep the seat pretty high on this, because the higher I am, the better I can feel it lower in the lat. And then same, you're gonna build through a lot of the back with this, but I'm specifically trying to focus on getting a little bit of a stretch through my back down on the lower region, and then also some of the lower lat is what I'm working on as well. I just like it. I think it feels good. I hit a few sets with it, and I was showing you not to throw it back into you. Now here, notice I let my shoulders stay down, but I show you the difference of them here in a few seconds, of them coming up and what not to do. So see that? Don't do that. Keep them down. It'll help keep things engaged. Don't keep them up. Keep them down. And I like to rotate my hands a little bit. So it's like neutral. I guess that'd be neutral. I don't know. They kind of twist in at the bottom, though. If you pay attention, they twist in, and that helps me contract a little bit better. And I'm showing here, don't do that. Sometimes when the weight gets heavy, people tend to bring the handle further out in front of them, which if you do that, even with a close grip, it kind of gets down into that lower region of the back. But still, with this, you don't want to do that. You want to think as if you had a bar in your hand and you're basically bringing it down to your chest. And again, we are staying more upright in this movement. We're not leaning back. Like if we were to have, basically if we were falling back at a 45-degree angle, then it's going to be more of a high row. So we're not doing that. And this is basically a straight arm push down. But I enjoy using the rope, and I like to basically get myself into basically like, I wouldn't say the torque position, but like as if someone was about to throw it back in the club. But this is working through that upper lat, a little bit of the rhomboid, and just building overall thickness through the lat. You can see the stretch through the muscle. And here I'm lowering it a little bit because this is like a hybrid movement between like that straight arm push down and almost like a row. I start bringing it into myself like a row, and I'm getting the stretch through the upper back, but also I'm hitting the inside region of the lower section of my lat, which is like the Christmas tree. So if you don't know what that is, look it up. And then just some basic shrugs, showing you basically you want to keep your arms pretty straight. You don't want to curl the weight. Some people tend to curl a little bit with the shrug. So you want to let your arms basically hang straight, or you can even have a slight bend in them, like a minor bend, but not much, if you can control the weight easy enough. And basically pretend your arm is in a cast so it cannot move. You'll notice in the next video, I'll talk more about the positioning of the placement of the dumbbell a little bit, and also how I change position of my back. So the weights are beside me, to my sides, but if you notice in a little bit, I start to round my upper back. Right about here, I think. Yep. So I round over, and sometimes I'll even bring the dumbbells more in front of my quads, and I think I can just activate that trap a little bit better. I don't know, I can feel the squeeze a little bit better. Every now and then I even have a slight rock in my knees when I'm doing it. It's just more of getting into a rhythm and just feeling it and becoming one with it. And this next video is where I go into the high row, so have fun.